There's 5 things, 5 conflicts, 5 crises that we need to talk about today. Isn't it amazing how we wake up every day and there's always something new on the news? Isn't it amazing as we see the new problem, we forget about the old problems and we just don't even worry about it. We don't try to fix the problem. We don't find a solution to it. We just glass over it. We as American people do. Now the question is, what are our adversaries doing? What is our government doing? What are the people who may not want to see our best interests at heart? What are they doing? So let's jump into 5 crises, 5 things that could cause major issues for the American people that I think, because we talk about it real quick and then we move on to the next thing and then we move on to the next thing, especially in the media world, it's a microwavable climate that we just simply move on to the next, to the next, to the next. And we forget about some of the things that we should be worried about. So let's jump into 5 things that I think you need to be looking at. When we look at them, we need to gain wisdom and try to figure out what's best for us and how we can hit these things head on. That way we're not as worried about the fear and worry and the anxiety it may cause, but be prepared for what is to come with some of these problems. So let's jump into this video today. It's going to be a good one. It starts right now. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so much for being here today. There is some big news coming at the end of this video, so please stay tuned to the very end of this video. We're going to talk about the subject matter at hand, and then we've got some wonderful news that we want to share with you that I think you will be excited about. So let's jump into the subject matter at hand. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up, let us know what you think about this content. Hang around for the news that we're going to be releasing at the end of this video. So 5 things that I think we all saw in the news. We probably all realized it. But because each day comes with a new problem, we start forgetting about the old problem. How many times have you heard that, we forget real quick in politics? We forget the big story. We forget the big news. We forget the breaking news, the shocking news. All because there's new breaking news, new shocking news. And if we don't devote the attention to them, you're going to slowly lose your freedoms. Number 1, there's a revelation just last week about the Catholic Church and about how the FBI was basically having some operatives in the church. Now, this is not just about the Catholics, it's about Christians as a whole. When we see a government that is worried about what the church is doing and is worried about what Christians are doing, that could be a problem. Now, here's where I want to differentiate when we talk about church. Bible-believing Christians, true Christians, are not going to cause issues. We're just not. That's not our nature. That's not who we serve. If we really believe in God, we won't cause the issues. Now, are there probably bad players in some churches? Absolutely. But when we start seeing the instigation, we start seeing the operations move into the church, I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on. Why? Because when that story came out, it kind of hit the main press for a little bit, and everybody was a little shocked. A few people talked about it, and it was dropped. No one else talked about it. So what that did is it gave just enough information to the players at B and maybe some of these government operatives to say, we can push a little bit harder. So when the church or when people in the church may not agree with some of the politics that is in our world, are we going to see more persecution? Are we going to see taxation on the church? Are we going to see that the church is spewing hate speech, quote unquote hate speech? Now, we don't want any of those things to happen, really. But because there was not enough uproar about the situations of infiltration of the church and of Christianity, I think that could be a problem for us, especially with the ones who believe in the Christian movement and believe in Christ. Now, another thing, this time frame with this president, with President Biden, they said this is the most anti-Christian and the most aggressive towards the Christian movement that we've ever seen in the government of America. Now, you can do your own research, you can do your own studies. That's just the story that I read just last week when they talked about the infiltration of the FBI into the church. Now, should this be a concern to you? Yes. What's even more concern is that it just came, we read about it, and then it left. There was no big players, no big Christian speakers, no one in the movement saying this was wrong, government should apologize. This was wrong, the FBI should apologize. There's no need to go into our churches because that's a freedom that we have. Freedom with our religion and freedom with our speech. But because we didn't push back, because the government didn't really see a major fluster, a major movement away from it, I believe it's going to open a door for them to say, you know what, here's an excuse for us to make our way into the church. Here's an excuse for us to make sure they're not speaking this way against this policy. That could be dangerous. So pay attention to what they're talking about, how it's a movement away from the church. Now, we live in a world that is not Bible believing. We understand that. We understand as Christians, we know we will face persecution. The kicker, though, is are we seeing the Christians protected, or are we seeing more persecution? I think we're going to see the latter. And the question is, there should have been more of an uprising over it, and it wasn't. Number two is too big, too big. And here's what I mean by that. BlackRock just crossed over $9 trillion in assets. That means their hand in most companies are publicly traded, they're not privately owned. I'm talking about big influencing companies. We think of Bud Light from last week. We think of all these other companies that are pushing their narratives and their values, quote unquote values, on you, if it deals with how they believe or how they want you to believe. Why do they do that? Sometimes it doesn't help their policy, i.e. Anheuser-Busch. But why do they do it? Because there's an asset holder, and there's one that's invested in just about all these big businesses that are pushing this narrative across America and across the world. When we see BlackRock at $9 trillion in assets, BlackRock's holdings are more than what most countries in the world have in value. BlackRock has. So you don't believe that they can push their narrative across what you buy, what you see, what you do each and every day? They have power. But because we're not talking about it, and because your congressmen and your senators and our elected officials, I'm saying mine too, are not pushing against it, they're going to these global conferences, they're doing all these things that BlackRock wants them to do. They're all being bought out by them. So no one is really talking about it. You may have, 5 or 10, honest people in Washington pushing against this and how dangerous this is. But this is not capitalism. This is dangerous. This is going on fascism, that they can push their narrative across, and also not only push it across for you to believe in it, but also make sure that if you don't believe in it, you have no other source to go to because they own the competitor down the road. Think of BlackRock. They own tons of investments in solar and batteries and all these companies they want you to move to, get to a cleaner energy. They're also heavily involved in the oil industry. So they're playing both those cards, and ultimately it's going to cost you. They're making loads of money. All these banks failing, all these buyouts that need to be happening, BlackRock. This is a crisis that needs to be talked about, but it's not being talked about because I think not only do they own a lot of these businesses and have a say on all these board of directors, they have a say with our politicians too. This is dangerous. One thing I want to add to that, I see it all the time, and I hear all the time, especially on our kind of channels, they'll say, our vote doesn't matter. Okay, I still think you need to vote, but here's what I think you need to do more. Now, I don't drink beer. I told you that. It's just not something I do. But did you see the movement away from Anheuser-Busch, and you saw a dip, about $6 billion in their sales because of that little push of boycott? Now, what I don't want to see is everybody just say, okay, they learned the lesson, and then go back and drinking it, and then all of a sudden their money goes back up. You can vote with your dollars. You don't realize how important your dollars still are. And what I mean by that, quit supporting these places and these companies. You can still find local business. You can still use other people who want to do good, who just wants to live the American dream and do it for their family. So if you can buy something maybe locally and not at a big box store, maybe if you have to buy something online, you can buy from a local provider or American-made company and not just Amazon. Now, there's places for Walmart, there's places for Amazon. We understand there's some stuff you just can't get anywhere else. But if you can skip out Tractor Supply and go to a local co-op, why don't you do that? Vote with your dollars. When you start spending money with someone else, people start realizing it. It will be a slow movement, but the more that the millions of people that live in America start waking up and seeing that, the more that their awakening will help the woke culture move away from their policies. Number 3, a crisis that we see in the rural areas, but that nobody wants to talk about. We try to justify it. It's our cities. They are literally imploding. Our cities are closing down Walmarts, they're closing down grocery stores, they're closing down pharmacists, they're closing down all these places, all these retail giants. They're closing down convenience stores. Why? Because either thievery, murders, crimes, whatever is going on, there's not enough policing. There's not enough abiding by the law going on. So if we allow people to act like anarchists and we allow them to do whatever they want to do and they tear these cities up, what we don't want to see is more investment in that area and say, here, this will fix it, throwing money at it. No, that's not solving the problem. It's making a bigger problem because now you're throwing money at it and it's making people more dependent on what you're providing. The government does not need to step in and pay, Walmart or XYZ grocery chain to stay there just in case they lose all this. They don't need to give them any kind of insurance, any kind of grants. These companies need to move out of these cities if they cannot get the crime problems taken care of. Now, the reason this is a crisis that nobody's talking about, these mayors and these aldermen and these city councils, all these people are standing up and they're justifying, saying, it's just because of the situation. Average people, it's just the situation because there's no jobs. All that's a bunch of excuses and bull. That is bull. We need to get control of our cities. What happens when all of a sudden these businesses are closing down and there's so many people that's living off all these things and all of a sudden those businesses start closing down? What happens? Two things. Either government steps in and makes almost like a military state or federal hub in these cities where they provide everything for them, which is making a more socialistic approach, which I believe this is what the government wants, by the way, just being honest. Or secondly, you see people going outside the city and going to the rural areas. I don't think you're going to see the acceptance of all the crime moving into the rural areas all across America because they're not used to it. The rural areas are not used to it. I can leave my car door open. I can leave my house unlocked, not because I want to, but there's just times I do because we're a different world. If I'm out on the farm, I don't lock my house because I don't worry about it. I can kind of see it vaguely. I don't worry about anything like that happening. But that's why we prepare our homes. That's why we secure our homes, because I believe we're seeing a crisis in the cities, and either one or two things are going to happen. People are going to migrate majorly out of the cities and go in the rural areas, and some of that could cause major problems if that crime still goes with them. Or you're going to see a socialistic society push in these cities where you're going to make literally 15-minute cities, but not only that, make a city that is completely dependent on the government providing all their needs, because the anarchy that's going on in their cities is decimating small business, it's decimating even big business. So then there's one left, is government subsidized business that will move in. Number 4, this kind of goes along with number 3 with the danger of the government stepping in. But number 4, there's an article that just came out that says the majority of Americans are not prepared for retirement. Now, I don't believe in the 401k system. I don't believe in the IRA system. I do invest in those things because that's all we have, especially as an employee-employer. But I don't believe that's the best system. It blows my mind that we've allowed regulation, and this goes back to our crooked congressmen and crooked politicians that allow these bills to pass. It shouldn't be a cap on what I can put in my own retirement tax-free. It shouldn't be a taxation if I need to pull that out. It shouldn't be a taxation if I leave it for a certain amount of time and it stays in there. That should be, again, no business of the government being in our retirements. And then on top of that, to be forced to go into a Ponzi scheme like Social Security. What I am saying is this: people can't retire like they used to could. We live in a different economy. We live in a debt economy. We live in an economy that people cannot make it. $1 million now won't go what $1 million did years ago. Now, $1 million is a lot of money. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the dollar itself will not go as far as what the dollar did go years ago. So if you've got a retirement based of $500,000 to $1 million, don't think that you're going to be able to live happily ever after on that and pay everything you need. Our taxes are going up, your bills are going up, your utilities are going up, inflation's going up. So if you have less than even that, like most Americans do, of course, like 60-something% doesn't even have retirement. So if we see that kind of number and we see that situation, what are we going to do? Social Security is struggling. Are we going to see more government subsidizing? Are we going to see higher taxation on the other people to provide for the elder, which the elder should be taken care of, but they should have been taken care of by the monies that they have been putting up. But over-regulation has caused a lot of these issues. The consumer drive and debts have caused a lot of these issues. So now we see a generation that is coming up that's in the retirement age that can't retire. This could be a problem, because if people have to live off government, the more we put people on the government dole, the more the government's going to grow. The more government's going to take from other people, and the more regulation is going to happen. And therefore, have you seen anything that government touch actually work right? No. So the more they involve themselves in your life, the more socialistic we're becoming, the more crisis we're going to see. Please try to do all you can to prepare for retirement. If you got a 401k IRA, use them right now, but find other ways to invest your money also. We have tons of videos of what we personally do with our money. You have to make sure you're getting somewhat ready for retirement, no matter if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, or you're in retirement now. Please do all you can. The less that you save, the more you will depend on the government. Last point I want to bring up, number 5, and this is a big one, and we hear this all the time, but then the spending doesn't stop. Number 5, we're in a bigger deficit than we've ever been. We're in a bigger money deficit than we've ever been, and our dollar is in worse shape than it's ever been. I'm gonna read this from Zero Hedge. It says, U.S. annualized debt cost exceed $800 billion. I read another article that said that we're borrowing like $5 or $6 billion a day. That would kind of go with this number too. $5 to $6 billion a day. And guess what? If we're raising the interest rate to curb inflation, which is a problem because all the money printing, then the interest rate's going to make the debt go up and cost more because the interest payments on the debt. And by the way, have you heard that our dollar's not doing too well because there's more countries moving to BRICS? So all of that is really going to cause an issue with our dollar. Also says the recession risk grows after money supply shrinks at its fastest pace since the Great Depression. I know if you watch the news, this is what you hear. Well, we may see a mild recession. Well, they changed the definition of recession. You were already in a recession, people. Wake up. They just changed the definition. So then therefore they pushed their story all across the media, and then they pushed it as, well, we may feel a mild recession. If you have more money now than you did 4 years ago, you're doing great. Or you're buying more for your dollar than you did 2 or 3 years ago, you're doing great. But I doubt there's probably not that many people that's seeing that. The majority of Americans are feeling less money in their pocket, more debt, less bonuses and incentives to stay at jobs, and then on top of that, you're seeing massive layoffs from a lot of companies, a lot of retail giants. Not only that, your food costs more, your gas costs more, and we have more debt. Not only as government, we have more credit card debt than we've ever had as consumers. Now, wrapping this up before we get to the good news, all of these things is why? Because we have an over-regulatory body of our government. We've lost the sight of people having freedoms. And when we see governments put themselves into our churches, put themselves into our dollars, put themselves into our stores, and then not protect the people in these cities, then we're going to see more government intervention. You're going to see more regulation and more socialist policies pushed. We cannot allow those things to happen. But the news cycle is very good at this. They'll let you hear one story, and then the next day you hear another story, so then you forgot about that. Did you ever hear anything about the Chinese balloon anymore? Have you heard anything about the Supreme Court leaker? We caught that other leaker in like 2 days. What about this Supreme Court leaker? You hear nothing about it, did you? Did you even remember it? Did you ever see the manifesto? You start thinking about all the problems and all the things that we've heard. Keep your focus on what's moving next, and you forget about the crisis that we should be facing, and we should be hearing, we should be gaining wisdom for. So I challenge you, pay attention to what's happening to the freedoms, our rights, our religion, what's happening to our money, what's happening to these big monster businesses that should not have the control and power they do, but they do not only for the government, but also in your personal lives. What are we going to do about our cities? What are we going to do about our debt? This is going to cause some major issues. Could be international or it could be domestic. Either way, these are things we need to keep an eye on. So focus on what's going on around you and prep like you've never prepped before, and start living a sustainable life and doing as much as you can to provide for you and your family. Now, let me know what you think about this video and this topic, because I want you to chime in your thoughts. Now let's get to the good news and something I've been wanting to tell you and we've been talking about for about a month, but I have not told you yet. We have a surprise. Now we've been doing YouTube for about 3 years. Up until about a year and a half ago, we were doing a lot more of our farm. You were seeing a lot more of our family. You were seeing a lot of things go on around the farm. Well, since we started doing these videos, you hear people say, well, hey, how do you do that? I want to see you do that. I want to see you demonstrate that. Well, guess what? So we have a new channel that we need you to support. This channel is called The Max Life. So not to confuse you with this channel, this is The Max. Our goal here is to teach you more. On this other channel, The Max Life, we want to show you our family. We want you to see our kids growing up. We want to show you how we make these tinctures. We want to show you how we grow our gardens. We want to show you how we raise pigs, how we raise cattle. Not only that, we want to show you just hanging out as a family. We want to show you what we do as a family. The goods, the bads. We go fishing. We're going to show you fishing. We're going to go out, even on vacation. Everything that we do, we want to bring attention to it because we want you to see this is how we live. This is the honest view of our lives. And we want to bring you along for the way. Now, some of you that's been with us for a long time, you remember my children. I have 6 kids and you will see them in this new channel. You'll see my beautiful wife. She's way prettier than me. So you'll see her in this channel as well. We're going to be doing a lot of fun things. So we do ask you, we just got a video uploaded. We are brand new. It's got 1 subscriber, which is the max. So I need you to step over there and start subscribing. Watch the new video, watch the trailer, see my beautiful wife talk about what's going on today on the farm, because I promise you, you will not regret enjoying it, and you'll leave with a smile on your face because my kids are beautiful. No offense to all your children too, but my kids are beautiful and you will enjoy watching them because they're always crazy. So it's never a dull moment here at the Max, and we want to share it with you. So I have 212,000 subscribers. On average, we have anywhere from 30 to 70,000 watch our videos on average. We have some that's way higher than that. So 100,000 people are watching every other day. What does that mean? That means I need to see at least 10,000 of you go over there and subscribe. Send a comment to that channel saying, hey, we're excited to see what's going on. We're not having a baby. I know some people thought we were having a baby. That was the big announcement. No, we don't need any more children. We're happy with the 6 we have, but we do want to share our life with you, and we want you to see our children grow up. We want to show you how we live and how we live sustainable. You're going to see the inside of the house. We're going to do some farm tours. We're going to just have fun. So we need you to join us over there. We're going to try to make sure our videos are not overlapping. We don't want to give you double content. We want to give you great content on 2 channels. So jump over there, check out that channel. Again, my wife and my children are way prettier than me anyway. So I hope you enjoy that channel, and I hope you enjoy the content that you're seeing here. Let us know what you think about it. God bless. Have a wonderful evening. Don't forget to go check out that channel. Happy homestead, y'all.